I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, Race Day in the nation's capital, the newcomer who took home top honors, and the running tradition unifying the military community.
Transgender prisoners in California are now eligible to get gender reassignment surgery. I'm Peggy Pico. How the new law works and its impact on prison housing. Then, with record rainfall expected from El Nino, should you buy flood insurance and why you need to decide soon.
So it's hard to calculate based just on electric rates they're paying what the value of solar is.
Some call it a power play, rocking California's solar industry, how the changes may force some businesses offline. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. California's solar industry is about to change. A key financial incentive for homeowners to install solar rooftop panels is set to expire soon. As KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen explains, the future of solar in California could be at stake.
Phil Salas wraps up a project at a home in Carmel Valley on an unusually cloudy day in San Diego. About 50 solar panels are set to be screwed onto the tile roof. Salas is a project manager for the solar panel installation company Home Energy Systems. Solar is booming in San Diego. Lots of sunny days and a moderate climate make it an ideal place to turn the sun into electricity. Salas is booked through the end of the year.
When I first started, there wasn't very many companies, and I would say that it's probably tenfold at least. But if SDG&E gets exactly what they want, I really don't see very many companies staying in business.
San Diego Gas and Electric is lobbying for big changes to a program that gives financial benefits to customers who install solar panels. Here's how it works. Sometimes a home with solar panels produces more electricity than it consumes. The customer can then sell that extra power back to the grid to power other homes in the neighborhood. This is called net metering. It makes power bills a lot cheaper for solar customers, and supporters say it's one of the most powerful tools to encourage the spread of solar energy.
Hey, how's it going? Good to see you.
Ron Johnson is the homeowner getting the solar panels installed on his roof. He says he's happy to do his part to help the environment. But the first reason he gives for installing solar panels is money.
You know, obviously this time of year we're running the AC almost 24/7. We have 3 kids. We have a big home. We like to be comfortable. But not everybody has a large amount of usage like some families, and we're kind of on the high end. So, you know, we're just trying to find best ways to save the most money.
San Diego Gas and Electric pays the full retail cost for the excess power generated by Johnson's solar panels. That's great for Johnson. He gets more money back. But SDG&E wants to pay solar customers the cheaper wholesale price for that extra power. The utility company says the current net metering program is unfair.
It's been 20 years since that program started, and what we have today is customers are paying $100 a year more than they should on their electricity bills to subsidize the growth of this industry today, and we feel that the industry has really shown it's here to stay and is ready to stand on its own feet.
Critics say SDG&E's plan puts profits before the environment. But the utility says it's doing its part to help California transition to renewable energy.
You're seeing energy use more in between, the hours of 6 to 9 when you get home from work, when you're cooking dinner.
It has programs to educate customers on how to conserve energy.
So right now we have the lights on, so you can see what our energy use is and how much that's costing.
And it's already met California's goal of getting 1/3 of its energy from renewables by 2020.
We have different plans for our customers, and in the future, we're going to have a program where customers can choose how much renewable energy they want, be it 100% renewable energy or be it investing in a solar project in their backyard. So there's a lot we're doing to help empower renewable energy for our customers.
SDG&E doesn't have the final word on net metering. That decision rests with state regulators. They have until the end of the year to present their plans. State Senator Marty Block says the uncertainty is affecting the industry.
Solar companies have come to my office and said that with the change in net metering rules on the horizon, it's really having a chilling effect on their business. The San Diego solar companies and the San Diego solar customers haven't really had a chance to give their input yet.
That's why the Democratic senator organized a public meeting with the California Public Utilities Commission here in San Diego. The meeting is set for 1 p.m. on Wednesday at City Hall. He says SDG&E may be right. Customers without solar are subsidizing those with solar. But
the customers who use solar are contributing to society in many other ways besides the dollars. I mean, as the air is cleaner, the people are breathing, there'll down the road be fewer children with asthma, fewer health needs. So it's hard to calculate based just on electric rates they're paying what the value of solar is.
Okay, you got the panel?
back at the house, Phil Salas says the heart of the issue is the environment.
This side's done over here.
Okay.
And it doesn't make sense to make solar more expensive when the market is booming in San Diego. He and his coworkers also don't want to lose their jobs.
These are your friends, your neighbors, family members. These are real people that love their jobs, love what they do, and they do it for more than just a paycheck.
Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story. And of course, you can find more at kpbs.org. We've got details on that meeting coming up on Wednesday there. State leaders are preparing California for the worst case scenario due to climate change. The plan is called Safeguarding California. They're bracing for natural disasters like flooding and fires. Experts also exploring the public health risks that may be caused by climate change. Governor Jerry Brown recently signed a law encouraging the use of renewable resources to help battle climate change. A multi-million-dollar investment banking on a chip to replace damaged nerves. Researchers at San Diego State hope a new grant will lead to human trials. They've been able to patch small sections of spinal cord so the brain can start talking to a paralyzed limb. Success has been limited to small movements like wiggling a toe.
Because we can read signals only from a very small part of the brain. With this new center, what we're trying to do is read signals from hundreds of thousands and millions of neuron cells and get the intent of the brain exactly, or as exact as we can.
Researchers are working on a chip to replace parts of a severed spinal cord or an area of the brain damaged by stroke. San Diego State received up to $20 million to develop the chip. They hope it will be ready for human trials within 5 years. Shedding light on vaccinations and whooping cough, a new study finds infants are less likely to get sick from whooping cough or pertussis if their mother was vaccinated against the disease. The study comes from the California Department of Public Health. Doctors recommend pregnant women get the vaccine during their third trimester. A charter school in San Diego's mid-city area is getting top honors for its performance on California's new standardized tests. KPBS reporter Megan Burks has this update.
The nonprofit Education Trust West poured through new California Common Core testing data this month, and America's finest charter school came out on top. Nearly 80% of third graders there scored at or above standards on the language arts portion of the test. That put them at #1 among California's low-income schools and well above San Diego Unified's 48% pass rate. They also outperformed more affluent students in the district. The school has about 300 students with classes capped at 23, and it got its start 4 years ago, so it's been teaching Common Core since the beginning. Nestor Language Academy in the South Bay and the Preuss School at UC San Diego also scored within the top 10 among low-income schools in their grade level. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
A Democrat has entered the race for mayor of San Diego. Gretchen Newsom is the political director for the local electrical workers union. She's also president of the Ocean Beach Town Council.
And I'm running for mayor.
She announced her candidacy at the County Democratic Convention on Saturday. She says she'll focus on more affordable housing and raising the minimum wage. Mayor Kevin Faulconer, a Republican, is up for re-election next year. A study released today shows underground sex trafficking in San Diego is an $800 million business. It hurts 9,000 and 12,000 women and girls every year. The human trafficking study was conducted by the University of San Diego and Point Loma Nazarene University. Among its other findings, there are 110 gangs involved in commercial exploitation of people, and 15 was the average age of a person's entry into child sexual exploitation. Following up now on a fatal shooting in the Gaslamp Quarter last week, the 2 motorcycle officers involved have been identified as Scott Thompson and Gregory Lindstrom. The officers fatally shot a man after he pointed a fake gun at them. The shooting has been criticized because the officers failed to turn on their body cameras. Police authorities say safety concerns trump use of the device. California leading the way for transgender inmates. The state will be the first in the nation to pay for reassignment surgeries. Peggy Pico explains how the new guidelines work.
About 400 California prison inmates are transgender, and unless they've already had sex reassignment surgery, they are housed with prisoners of their birth gender. Here with how the state's new policy will be implemented and its impact is Matt Stevens with Progressive Law Group in San Diego. And Matt, what's it like for transgender inmates in prison right now?
Well, I think it's very uncomfortable because there aren't the services available. They're housed in incorrect position, in the incorrect place, and to the extent that some are housed, they're generally isolated or separated from general population.
To protect themselves?
Correct.
And so are they more likely to be abused or sexually assaulted?
They absolutely are, especially in general population.
Walk us through how this new policy works. Is every transgender prisoner eligible for this surgery?
No, there's not across-the-board eligibility. So you have to have the pre-existing condition, you have to have predetermination of gender dysphoria, you have to have more than 2 years left on your sentence before you will qualify, and you have to pass review by a particular committee that's being set up to review all the cases.
Now, we understand that this law says that it's based on medical necessity. Do you think that this policy is fair?
Well, I think it's a step in the right direction. So at least now it's being considered. And the medical necessity aspect of it is a pretty narrow legal determination. So if you have a liver illness, for example, it would be cruel and unusual punishment to deny you treatment for your liver ailment. The same is true for gender dysphoria, that whatever the spectrum of care is that you need is being denied just because you're transgender.
And I understand there's at least 7 criteria they have to meet, correct? Can you run us through a few of those?
Well, the key ones are that you've lived as the gender of choice for more than a year, that you've had your medical treatment, your psychological counseling, and again, that your gender is affirmed to be your gender of choice and not your birth gender.
I see. And what's going to happen, do we know, with prisoners who undergo a transgender surgery? Where will they be housed then?
Well, presumably what will happen is they will then be put in the correct population. So if you're male to female transgender and you have your sex alignment surgery, then you will be placed in with females.
Last week, this law took effect immediately. Is there any idea on how long it'll be before a prisoner can actually apply and actually get their first surgery?
Well, it's a long process. So everything will have to run through that committee. Anybody who currently qualifies and has medical testimony that they qualify will be submitted to that committee, and then the committee will go through its review process.
Do transgender or could a transgender person actually commit a crime because to get into prison to have the surgery? Because this surgery is very expensive.
I think they're far more likely to kill themselves, frankly. And the suicide rates among transgender people are astronomical. So people who are transgender are not committing crimes to obtain the surgery. It can sometimes be a social effect of who and what they're forced to do to survive.
I see. What's the legal basis for this? Because California state, now the state is being mandated to pay for this. So but the federal government is actually behind the, as far as ruling what happens with medical necessity in the prison. So right. How does that all work out together?
Well, I think we'll start to see some more, California very often is in the lead on these issues. And so I think the feds will catch up eventually. And again, it goes back to the legal issue of whether it's cruel and unusual punishment to deny the medical treatment that is necessary for that particular individual.
All right. Matt Stevens, thank you very much.
Thank you.
A massive earthquake hit South Asia today, killing hundreds of people. It also knocked out power and communications to already isolated areas. The 7.5 quake centered deep beneath the Hindu Kush Mountains in Afghanistan. It borders Pakistan and China. Associated Press reporter Bonnie Ghosh shows us the damage left behind.
A massive 7.5 earthquake in northern Afghanistan shook buildings from Kabul to Delhi, cutting power and communications in some areas. An Afghan news channel recorded the moment the earthquake struck, forcing the anchor to leave the studio. Officials say more than 250 people have been killed, with the death toll likely to rise. The casualties are mostly in Afghanistan and Pakistan, with several hundred people wounded.
The numbers may increase as the situation looks very bad. We declare emergency here in the hospital. We have enough doctors and are doing our best to treat the affected people.
The U.S. Geological Survey said the epicenter was 130 miles deep and hit within the Hindu Kush Mountains. The bulk of the damage has been in Pakistan, where homes and belongings were reduced to rubble in just 45 seconds.
At around 1400 in the afternoon, we were at our home when the earthquake happened, a strong and dangerous earthquake. Children were scared. One of our relatives called me and said, "Your brother's house just collapsed and there are injured children."
At least 12 students at a girls' school in Afghanistan were killed in a stampede as they fled shaking buildings in Takhar province. Another 42 girls were taken to the hospital. Civil and military authorities across the region have mounted rescue operations trying to reach remote areas impacted by the quake. With telecommunications disrupted, officials say the full extent of the damage won't be known for quite some time. Bonnie Ghosh, Associated Press, New York.
It may be the meat of the matter. New research places processed meats in the same cancer danger category as smoking or asbestos. The World Health Organization study released today says processed meats are linked to colon and stomach cancer, and red meat is probably harmful too. The study suggests 34,000 cancer deaths per year are linked to diets heavy in processed meat, while 1 million deaths are linked to smoking. El Nino expected to bring more than average rainfall to San Diego. Peggy Pico finds out if that means you need to get flood insurance and when to get it.
The National Weather Service, NOAA, is urging Californians who live in floodplains to get flood insurance. Joining me with how to determine your flood risk and coverage is Nancy Kincaid, Press Secretary with the California Department of Insurance. And Nancy, in general, what are some of the flood-prone areas in San Diego?
Well, traditionally, if you just look back at history, the last El Nino, 97, 98, and see where it flooded, some of the Mission Valley areas, those low-lying areas that are near the rivers and the estuaries, that's typically where you're going to see the flooding. But you also have to keep in mind, with development and an increasing amount of asphalt and concrete, any place that's changed rather dramatically could be at risk. And certainly fire-prone areas, where we saw the fires in Carlsbad or off the 15 on the east side, those areas might be more susceptible to flooding as well because they don't have the plant life to hold the water back.
About 54,000 people in Southern California live in a flood-prone area. How do you find out if your home is at risk or in one of those areas?
Well, actually, the FEMA.gov website lists the flood maps, and you can go to those maps and see where the flood-prone areas are. They list high risk and low risk. Typically, you do it by putting in a zip code or your area where you live. You can also do it through your county. San Diego County should also have that information available to homeowners to get as well.
What kind of damage does a flood cause in a home?
It's devastating. I've actually worked a couple of flood events and have seen what it does to people's homes. And I'll never forget standing next to a homeowner in Northern California whose home, the top of his roof was 30 feet up. And I told him I couldn't see the water line from the flood. And he looked at me and said my home was submerged. And I had chills just looking up at that 30 8-foot pitch on his roof and thinking it was completely underwater. We can't fathom sometimes what could come, and that's difficult.
No, sure. Sometimes people will be flooded just 6 or 12 inches, or they could be submerged. What kind of cost does that entail in trying to repair water damage?
If you look at even just 2 to 3 feet of water in your house, that means that the drywall is absorbing the water and it can climb up the wall further. Your furniture is certainly going to be damaged. Appliances like dishwashers and refrigerators where the wiring is under the appliance, that can be devastating. Certainly your car is parked in your garage. 2 to 3 feet of water means your car probably has taken in water also. Thousands of dollars in damage.
How much does a flood insurance cost, and what does it cover?
It really depends. Flood insurance can range from, if you're in a low-risk area, maybe $300 to $500. Higher risk areas, sometimes $1,000 a year. But if you look at what you spend maybe at Starbucks or eating out in a month, you might be able to find that you can afford a flood insurance policy easier than you think.
Does it cover mud? Does it cover damage from water?
Well, it covers damage from water and rising water. Floods, as we typically see them, are an inundation of water from rising water. But mud flow and landslide is different, and you cannot buy coverage from that from traditional insurance companies. If it is available, it's available through what we call surplus lines. That's like a Lloyd's of London. That might be one of the only companies still able to sell that insurance.
Who's eligible for flood insurance? We usually think of homeowners, but should renters get it too?
Yeah, anybody who has that potential risk, renter or homeowner, you can go to the FEMA.gov website and you can actually price a policy, and it tells you right there about what you would pay. And then you can contact them or your homeowner insurance company, and they will connect you to get the flood policy.
You see, now, like other disaster insurance, I know that there is a window of time before a flood happens in order to sign up or buy flood insurance. What is that timeline here in Southern California?
The reason the experts made these recommendations last Friday for you to really consider it and buy it is because a flood insurance policy has to be in place for 30 days before you can file a claim. These rains are expected to come in early December, maybe even late November. So the urgency to buy that policy is right now.
And can you buy it for a year at a time? And then, so if you didn't get the flood this year, you could let it go next year?
Yeah, you can buy it for a year at a time. And I think it's hard for us to think about needing flood insurance after this sustained drought. But keep in mind that a drought this long makes the ground even less able to absorb water. You're more vulnerable.
And what are the first steps to take in your home if it has been flooded?
The first step is to contact the insurer and let them know that you need to file a claim, because one of the things you have to do is begin to pull the water out of your home, and that's a restoration company. But I would also urge people, before you hire a restoration company or sign a contract, get to your insurer first, because if it exceeds your coverage amount, you're on the hook to pay that difference.
All right, some good information, and there's more information and links on flood protection at kpbs.org. Nancy Kincaid, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Tomorrow here on Evening Edition, we'll have more on efforts to ready the region for El Nino and how homeless advocates are scrambling to help unsheltered men, women, and children. Inspiring the next generation of scientists, that's the goal of Archeology for Kids, a pilot program to help underserved elementary students increase their learning by doing.
Would this be a good inference?
So you think you're smarter than a fifth grader, huh? For some kids, the joy of learning new stuff is exciting and they can't wait to tell it.
This is part wood, and then they use this to like squish beans or potatoes.
Or potatoes? I love it. Excellent job, guys.
Imagine someone who's never seen an old-fashioned jar opener. The process of observation can be baffling at first.
Does it say anything? Does it move at all? Can you show me how this moves?
Welcome to Archeology for Kids in one of San Diego's most ethnically diverse neighborhoods, City Heights, where these kids are learning how to touch, feel, and ask questions to engage their inner scientist.
Geologists study rocks and minerals. Paleontologists study dinosaurs and fossils. And archaeologists, we study something else, right? We study people.
I'm a product of City Heights, as a matter of fact. Graduated from Wilson Middle School and Hoover High School and UCSD.
Anna Biffle has been principal at Euclid Elementary for 6 years and is thankful her school was picked to launch Archeology for Kids. She says these students learn by doing.
They can't go to Egypt or they can't go to a foreign land to do a dig. We can relate it right here at home and bring it right home and have them make that connection.
Covering the past and looking to the future, this program is helping unravel science in a way people from all walks of life can understand. The 3-month-long program will serve 340 elementary students in City Heights.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, our Culture at Risk series looks at the restoration of paintings and sculptures at a world-famous institute in Florence, Italy. That's Monday on the PBS News Hour.
Get set! 30,000 runners dashed under the arches at the annual Marine Corps Marathon in the nation's capital. All 4 branches of the military competed. A first-time marathoner won the race this weekend. He may be hooked on the race.
Not anytime soon, but I'm sure eventually. I mean, coming out here and winning today, I think I might have a little bit of a future in marathoning.
The 26-mile course is known as much for its competition and monuments. It also helps unify the military community. We are looking at a coastal flood advisory by the beaches this week. Temperatures on the mild side, 70s by the beaches. National Weather Service says higher than average waves may begin tomorrow and lead to possible flooding by the beaches and nearby structures. Advisory will last until Thursday. We're looking at 80s and 70s if you're in the inland valley sections, 70s and 60s for the mountains, back into the 90s and 80s in the desert. Here's a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Morning Edition. A violent struggle on the border where neighbors are being pushed out to make way for highways and pipelines. The lawmaker who is standing up to the threats. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.